You ever feel like something has you in its grip, but you can't even see the chains? That was me. I was addicted to the market, not just trading, not just the charts, but the entire adrenaline-fueled loop of hope, fear, and the illusion of control. If you've ever stared at a screen at 3 a.m., heart pounding, sweat clinging to your palms, knowing that your next move could make or break your week, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And let me tell you straight away, I was deep in it. I wasn't just a trader. I was a junkie, and the market was my drug. My life became a series of trades strung together like beads on a fraying thread. Every red candle, every sudden spike. My emotions rode them like a roller coaster I couldn't get off. But here's the thing, I wasn't happy. I was not chasing freedom or independence. I was chasing a high that never lasted longer than the next chart refresh. Before we go further, take a moment. If you're here, watching this, hit that like button, drop a comment if anything here resonates with you, and subscribe. This isn't just a story. It's a confession, a warning, and a path forward. And trust me, you're going to want to see where this goes. I remember one particular night. It was a Thursday. The market was volatile, every indicator screaming, danger. But my mind didn't listen to danger. My mind only listened to desire. I had lost, again, but my fingers itched to enter another trade, to prove to myself that I could reclaim what I had just thrown away. That's when it hit me. I was no longer trading. I was trying to fill a void. Every pip, every point, every tiny swing became a measure of my self-worth. And when the numbers went against me, it wasn't just money I was losing, it was sanity, piece by piece. There's a dark poetry to that moment, one that I think only addicts of the market can understand. The market doesn't yell at you. It doesn't scream. It doesn't care. It simply moves. But your mind, it does scream. Your ego, your fears, your unhealed wounds, they all take the wheel when you're vulnerable. And I was vulnerable. I would tell myself, this is the last trade. After this, I'll step back. But the truth was, my brain was rewired. The dopamine hit from a winning trade, the rush from a perfectly timed exit, it was chemical warfare on my own willpower. I chased it endlessly, a moth circling a flame, and every time I fell back into the glow of the screen, I promised myself it would be different next time. But it never was. And yet, at the same time, I always knew, that there was more to this. More than the fleeting victories, more than the crushing losses. Somewhere in the haze of obsession, I felt a whisper of clarity, you are addicted. And if you don't stop, you will break. It wasn't a sudden realization. There was no dramatic, movie-style epiphany. It was a slow, creeping awareness, like frost forming over a lake you're skating on. At first, you think it's nothing. Then the ice cracks. And by then, you're already sinking. I remember nights when I couldn't sleep, when my chest tightened just thinking about a trade that went against me hours ago. My relationships frayed, my energy drained, my self-respect hollowed out by the very thing I thought would elevate me. The market taught me one thing first, it doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your plans, your hopes, or the sleepless nights you endured staring at candles and charts. It only cares about patterns, probabilities, and timing. But I was treating it like a confidant, a measure of my value, a validation of my existence. And that's when it stopped being a tool and started being a cage. I can't tell you how many times I sat there, staring at the screen, hoping for a win, knowing deep down that my brain had already been hijacked by my own need for the next fix. I wasn't trading anymore. I was surviving a compulsion. And that compulsion, I realized, was more dangerous than any market crash. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about profit. It was about feeding a hunger I couldn't even name at the time. A hunger for control, for approval, for meaning in the chaos. And here's where most people stop listening. They think, oh, he lost money. Big deal. But losing money is only the symptom. The disease is deeper. It's the way your brain justifies the irrational, the way your ego whispers, you're smart. You'll win it back. And the truth? That whisper is a lie. It's the most seductive lie you'll ever hear, because it comes cloaked in confidence, in reason, in hope. And I bought it every single time. I want you to feel this with me. Close your eyes for a second and imagine this. You're up at 2 a.m., the room dark except for the glow of your screen. Every trade, every move, every tick matters more than anything else in your life. You feel alive, yes, but not free. You feel trapped. You feel consumed. That was me. That was my life. And I didn't even realize how deep the hole was until I started clawing my way out. So, here's the promise I want to make to you, because this is why you're watching. I survived it. I escaped it. And more than that, I learned something so profound about the market, about psychology, and about myself that it changed everything. If you've ever felt this pull, this obsession, this addiction, I'm going to show you what I discovered. It won't be easy. It won't be fast. But it will be real. And it will give you a way out that doesn't involve giving up trading entirely, but involves reclaiming your mind, your sanity, and your life. And that's where we're going. That's the journey I want you to take with me. But first, you need to admit it. Admit that there's a part of you that's been hijacked. Admit that the market isn't just a tool for wealth. It's a mirror reflecting your deepest vulnerabilities. And admit, finally, that change is possible. Because if you don't, no one else can do it for you. I remember the first time I realized that my relationship with the market wasn't normal. It wasn't about making money or learning patterns. It was about something darker, something primal. It was the thrill of the chase, the bite of fear, and the intoxicating whisper of, just one more trade. But the more I chased it, the more I noticed something terrifying. My own mind was turning against me. It started subtly. I would rationalize mistakes, telling myself, that wasn't really a loss. The market just tested me. Then I would obsess over trades I shouldn't have made, analyzing them compulsively, reliving every decision like it was a crime scene. My thoughts looped endlessly, like a video stuck on repeat. Sleep became optional, relationships optional, food sometimes optional. Everything was optional, except the screen. And that's when the pattern became clear. I wasn't addicted to trading. I was addicted to emotion. Every high, every low, every spike and drop, it wasn't about profit. It was about proof. Proof that I could beat the system, proof that I was right, proof that I existed. And when the proof didn't come, I felt hollow, gnawed at by anxiety, shame, and regret. I started noticing how my brain had rewired itself. Dopamine wasn't coming from success anymore. It was coming from anticipation. The waiting, the planning, the internal countdown before hitting buy or sell, that's where the fix lived. And if the trade lost? But the pain was also addictive, in a strange, twisted way. It made me crave the next trade even more. Loss had become fuel, and I was running on fumes of obsession. There's a psychological term for this, variable reward reinforcement. Casinos use it, social media uses it, and the market, with all its chaos and unpredictability, uses it too. My brain learned to crave the unknown, to feed off uncertainty. Every new trade was a puzzle, a hit, a gamble that sparked my brain in ways nothing else could. Rational thought? Secondary. Emotional survival? Primary. And that's when I realized I wasn't in control. The market was, in a way, irrelevant. My own wiring was the jailer. I began seeing the signs everywhere. My mornings started not with coffee or a plan, but with a reflexive reach for the phone. I would check charts during conversations, during meals, even in bed. If a trade went bad, I replayed it in my head, imagining all the ways I could have won it back. My heart raced. My chest tightened. My hands shook. And yet, I told myself I was disciplined. I was learning. But deep down, I knew the truth. Fear and greed weren't just emotions in trading, they were addictions. The fear of missing out, the fear of being wrong, the fear of loss. The greed for the next win, the next validation, the next spike of chemical reward. They didn't exist outside me. They were me. And the more I fed them, the more I became a hostage to my own impulses. The psychological unraveling didn't stop at behavior. It invaded my self-perception. I began measuring my worth in points, pips, and percentages. If the market moved against me, I felt defective. If I missed an opportunity, I felt inadequate. If I made a mistake, I berated myself relentlessly. My identity was no longer human, It was a balance sheet. And that is the cruelest form of addiction, when you no longer recognize yourself outside the thing that controls you. I want you to feel this with me because this is where most people get lost. Imagine the most intelligent, capable, driven person you know, reduced to a loop of panic, obsession, and self-recrimination. That was me. And it didn't matter that I had years of experience or hundreds of hours of study. Experience didn't matter. Knowledge didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was feeding the cycle, moment by moment, trade by trade. Sleep deprivation, racing thoughts, trembling hands, they became the norm. But it wasn't just physical. It was emotional. The market made me question my sanity. It made me question my decisions. It made me doubt my relationships, my friendships, even my own judgment. And yet, I couldn't stop. Not because I wanted to keep losing, but because stopping meant facing something I had been running from for years, myself. Here's the paradox I only realized after months, maybe years, of suffering. The addiction wasn't to the market at all. It was to avoidance. I was avoiding boredom, I was avoiding failure, I was avoiding the quiet truth that I had been trying to outrun my own emotions. Every trade was a shield, a distraction, a temporary escape from facing the emptiness I felt inside. And every loss, every near miss, every adrenaline spike was a reminder that running doesn't work. Not really. And this is where the unraveling reaches its most intimate, terrifying level. Because once you see it, truly see it, you understand that the market doesn't just take your money. It takes your focus, your clarity, your emotional equilibrium. It reshapes the wiring of your brain. It rewrites your priorities. And if you don't intervene, it doesn't just consume your trading account, it consumes your life. I remember staring at the ceiling one night, heart still pounding from a trade that had gone catastrophically wrong. I realized I didn't even know why I was doing it anymore. I wasn't learning. I wasn't growing. I wasn't even winning. I was surviving a loop of my own creation. And in that dark, almost unbearable clarity, I finally acknowledged the truth. I had to change, or I would lose myself completely. That's the point where most people fail to move forward. They see their behavior, they feel the pain, but they keep chasing it. I was different, not because I was stronger or smarter, but because I refused to let the addiction define the rest of my life. I wanted control back. I wanted to feel human again. And more than that, I wanted to reclaim trading for what it truly was. A tool, not a master. I want to take you back to the moment I finally understood what was happening, not on a superficial level, not in a read a book and learn way, but in a marrow-deep, gut-level way. After months of obsession, fear, and self-sabotage, I began noticing patterns, not just in the market, but in myself. And that's when it clicked. The market wasn't the enemy. I was. My mind had become the battlefield, and until I mastered that battlefield, the money, the trades, the success, it was all meaningless. It started with awareness. I didn't just say to myself, I'll try to control my emotions. That would have been a lie. I realized that the only way to break free was to first watch myself in real time, without judgment. I began observing every twitch, every itch to enter a trade, every tiny pang of greed or fear. I watched the desire as it arose, noting its rhythm, its trigger. First, it was uncomfortable, almost unbearable, but slowly, a strange clarity emerged. I wasn't reacting anymore, I was observing. And in that observation, power quietly returned. I started to see why I had been addicted for so long. It wasn't just dopamine, adrenaline, or variable rewards. It was identity. My ego had latched onto trading as a measure of my worth. Every win was validation. Every loss was punishment. And because I didn't know how to separate self from trade, I was trapped in a cycle where my mind, not the market, dictated the outcome of my sanity. Understanding this wasn't just freeing, it was revolutionary. Then came the hardest part, letting go. Not of trading entirely, but of control. Not of ambition, but of the need to prove myself every second. I realized that trying to dominate the market was like trying to hold water in your hands. It slips through no matter how tight your grip. So I loosened my grip. I allowed myself to experience uncertainty without reacting immediately. I allowed myself to take losses without letting them define me. I began to trade less, think more, and observe the patterns of both the market and my mind. And something incredible happened. The market didn't punish me for slowing down. In fact, I began to see opportunities more clearly. When my mind was no longer clouded by addiction, fear, or ego, decisions became sharper, cleaner, almost effortless. I realized that the true edge wasn't technical indicators, secret strategies, or complex algorithms. It was psychological mastery. The traders who win consistently aren't the ones chasing the highs, they're the ones who've learned to ride them without being consumed. This wasn't a sudden transformation. It was incremental, like water slowly carving a canyon. I had to face every impulse, every old habit, every irrational thought. And with each confrontation, the chains of obsession weakened. I wasn't fighting the market, I was fighting myself, and that fight demanded honesty I had never given anyone, least of all myself. The truth I discovered is profound. Trading is a mirror. The market reflects your fears, your impulses, your weaknesses. If you don't confront them, the market magnifies them. If you do, the market becomes a teacher. I learned to see losses as feedback, not punishment. I learned to see gains as information, not validation. And above all, I learned to see myself as separate from the numbers. Here's the most liberating part. Once I integrated this understanding, everything changed. I stopped being a prisoner of my own mind. I could watch a red candle and feel curiosity, not panic. I could step away from a trade and feel confidence, not obsession. I could experience fear without reacting impulsively. That shift didn't just improve my trading, it healed parts of me I didn't even realize were broken. I want you to feel this, not as a lecture, not as an instruction, but as a confession. The market addiction, the sleepless nights, the heart-pounding obsession, it doesn't define you unless you let it. The mastery isn't in controlling the market, it's in controlling yourself. And once you accept that, the promise I made at the beginning, the promise that you can reclaim your mind and your life, is real, tangible, and achievable. I know you might be thinking, this sounds too simple, too abstract. But simplicity doesn't mean easy. It means effective. It means looking inward when all your instincts tell you to look outward. It means observing yourself without judgment. It means breaking the cycle not with willpower alone, but with self-awareness and presence. And that, my friend, is the real payoff. The kind that doesn't just improve trading, but transforms life. And there's one more thing I want to leave you with before we move on. Understanding yourself at this level doesn't mean you'll never feel fear, greed, or obsession again. You will. But the difference is monumental. You won't react blindly. You'll observe, learn, and decide. The power shifts from the market, or your impulses, back to you. And that is the kind of freedom you can build on, day after day. So, if you've ever felt trapped in a cycle you can't escape, know this, the way out isn't external. It isn't a new strategy, a new system, a new guru. It's internal. The market is a reflection of your mind, not a master of it. And the moment you realize that, the moment you truly integrate that, everything changes. If you've been with me this far, then you already know one thing. The market is not the enemy. Your mind is. And the only way to win, truly win, is to reclaim yourself. I want to ask you something directly, honestly. How many times have you blamed the market, blamed your broker, blamed the strategy, or blamed luck, only to realize deep down that the problem wasn't out there? How many nights have you stared at your screen, heart racing, mind spinning, wondering why the results never matched the effort? The answer, if you're honest, is because the fight wasn't against the charts, it was against yourself. Here's the truth that most people never admit. The market exposes your weaknesses. Every impulsive trade, every panic exit, every obsession with the next spike. It's a mirror reflecting what you've never faced inside. And unless you acknowledge it, unless you sit with it, understand it, and confront it, the cycle will never end. I know it's not easy. I know it feels overwhelming, even impossible at times. I've been there. I've lived it. I've felt the suffocating pull of obsession, the endless loop of adrenaline highs and soul-crushing lows. And I want you to understand something crucial. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're incapable. It means you're human. You're wired to feel, to crave, to fear, and to chase. That's the nature of being alive. But being human also means having the ability to observe, to reflect, and to decide consciously. And that's the skill that turns a trader into a master of themselves. Think about it. The market doesn't care about your fears, your pride, your ego. It doesn't reward obsession or punish calmness in the way you might imagine. The market only moves. But your mind? Your mind decides whether that movement destroys you or teaches you. That's where the real work lies. Inside your head, in the silent hours, in the choices no one sees. That's the battlefield most traders never step onto. And here's the most human part. You're not alone. Every trader, every investor, every human who's ever chased the market's highs has felt this pull. You felt it. I felt it. The difference is in what we do with it. Do we surrender to it? Or do we observe it, accept it, and rise above it? That is the moment of truth, the one that separates obsession from mastery, fear from clarity, chaos from purpose. So, here's my call to you. Don't wait for a catastrophic loss to confront yourself. Don't wait until the stress, the sleepless nights, the shame, or the compulsions push you to the edge. Start now. Watch yourself. Observe your impulses without judgment. Notice the triggers that make you act without thinking. Feel the fear and the greed, but don't let them make your decisions. Give yourself the chance to step back, breathe, and regain control. I promise you this, it works. The first time you do it, you'll notice a shift. A subtle sense of clarity. A quiet confidence that you are no longer a prisoner of your impulses. The more you practice it, the stronger that clarity grows. And with that clarity, trading transforms from a chaotic battlefield into a purposeful, disciplined craft. You still feel emotion, you should, but it no longer controls you. You use it. You channel it. You master it. And here's the final truth. This isn't just about trading. This is about life. The lessons I learned from facing my addiction, from confronting my compulsions, from reclaiming my mind, they seeped into every part of my existence. Relationships improved. Sleep returned. Confidence came from within, not from validation or wins. And that, ultimately, is the reward, freedom. Not just freedom from the market, but freedom from the cage of your own unexamined mind. So I'm asking you, no, I'm challenging you, to look at yourself honestly. Admit what you've been running from. Observe your mind as it whispers, just one more trade. Notice the pull of obsession. Feel the fear, the greed, the doubt, but don't react automatically. Step back. Reflect. Reclaim control. You can do it. I did it. And if I can, so can you. And if this confession, this story, this insight has resonated with you, then don't just watch and walk away. Hit that like button. Leave a comment about your own experiences, your struggles, or your breakthroughs. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because this isn't just a one-time message. This is a journey to master yourself, to trade with clarity, and to live without the chains of compulsion. The market will always move. The screens will always glow. The highs and lows will always exist. But you, the one behind the keyboard, behind the trades, behind the obsession, you are stronger than any chart, any strategy, any variable. You are capable of observing, of mastering, of transforming. And the moment you realize that, that's the moment you become unstoppable. So, take a deep breath. Step back. Watch yourself, not the market. And start reclaiming your mind today. Because freedom, clarity, and mastery aren't found in the charts, they're found inside you. And when you finally see that, the market stops being a master and starts being what it was always meant to be. A tool, a teacher, and a mirror for your growth.